In 2014, two friends each put $50,000 into the market. One spent weeks researching individual stocks, building what he thought was a smart, diversified portfolio, 32 holdings across 11 sectors. He felt prepared. The other one bought 2 ETFs, set up automatic contributions, and basically forgot about it. 10 years later, the first guy had grown his $50,000 to around $180,000. Not bad, until you see that the second guy's 2 ETF portfolio had turned that same $50,000 into just over $310,000, $130,000 more from doing less. That gap isn't a fluke, and it's not luck either. There's a very specific reason why a simpler strategy built around just 2 funds consistently outperforms what most people spend years trying to construct. That's exactly what we're going to break down today. By the end of this video, you're going to understand a 2 ETF framework that, based on actual 10-year data, has averaged between 15% and 22% per year for each of its 2 components. We're going to look at exactly which 2 ETFs, why those 2 specifically, how they interact with each other, and what this portfolio realistically looks like over 10, 20, and 30 years. No gimmicks, no speculation, just a clear system built on publicly available data that you can start using this week. Here's what most new investors do. They open a brokerage account, feel the pressure to diversify, and end up buying a little of everything. Some tech stocks, a dividend ETF they heard about, a couple of sector plays, and maybe 2 or 3 S&P 500 funds that all hold the same companies anyway. What they end up with isn't a portfolio, it's financial noise. And the irony is that all of that complexity doesn't reduce risk, it dilutes the very returns they were chasing. Dalbar, which has tracked investor behavior since 1994, puts a number on this. Over the 20-year period ending December 2024, the average U.S. equity investor returned 9.24% per year, while the S&P 500 itself returned 10.35% over the same period. That 1.1% annual gap sounds small, but over 20 years it compounds into a massive difference. In their most recent single-year data, 2024, the app is even worse. Average investors earned 16.54%, while the index returned 25.02%. The point isn't to shame anyone. The point is that complexity breeds bad decisions, and bad decisions are extraordinarily expensive over time. Here's the thing most financial content won't tell you plainly. More holdings do not mean more safety, and more diversification does not automatically mean better outcomes. What it often means is that you own a watered-down version of the market, where your winners can't move the needle because they're one of 32 positions, and your losers drag the whole portfolio sideways. The investors who have built the most consistent long-term wealth in public markets have generally done so with a small number of high-quality, broad instruments, not by trying to outsmart the market with dozens of individual bets. 2 well-chosen ETFs can give you exposure to over 500 companies across every major sector with built-in rebalancing, low costs, and a level of diversification that most hand-built portfolios never actually achieve. That's not an oversimplification, that's just how the math works out. ETF 1, VOO. The first ETF is your foundation. It tracks the S&P 500, 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the United States, all in one fund. Your best options here, Vanguard's VOO, iShares IVV, or if you want the absolute lowest cost version, BKLC from BNY Mellon, which has a literal 0% expense ratio. For this video, we'll use VOO as the benchmark. VOO currently holds 518 companies. The top names, NVIDIA at 7.58%, Apple at 6.67%, and Microsoft at 5.92%, dominate the top of the fund. Technology is the largest sector at 33.3%, followed by financial services at 12.1% and communication services at 10.8%. Now, the performance. Over the past 10 years, VOO has averaged 15.58% per year in annualized total return. Run the math, $100,000 invested 10 years ago, no additional contributions, would be worth approximately $424,000 today. And the annual cost to own it? 0.03%. That's $3 per year for every $10,000 invested. One thing worth pausing on, and this is the part most people skip, is that VOO also pays a dividend, around 1.05% annually, and roughly 97% of those dividends are classified as qualified dividends. That matters because qualified dividends can be taxed at 0, 15, or 20%, depending on your income, versus ordinary income tax rates that go as high as 37%. Over 2 or 3 decades, that tax distinction alone compounds into a massive difference that high-yield income ETFs simply can't match in taxable accounts.
ETF 2, QQQ. The second ETF is your growth engine. Your main options here: Invesco's QQQ, Vanguard's VUG, or Charles Schwab's SCHG. All three are large-cap growth funds, but they vary slightly in construction. QQQ tracks the NASDAQ 100, the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ exchange. It's one of the 5 largest ETFs in the world, with around $454 billion in assets. Worth noting, in late 2025, QQQ completed a major structural change from a unit investment trust to an open-end fund, which reduced its expense ratio from 0.20% to 0.18%. For long-term buy-and-hold investors, Invesco also offers QQQM, the same exposure at 0.15%. SCHG from Charles Schwab holds around 196 companies and runs at just 0.04% annually. It's worth a look if you want slightly broader large-cap growth exposure. The performance for QQQ over the past 10 years, 21.68% annualized. That same $100,000 invested a decade ago would be worth approximately $711,000 today. That's not a typo, but the trade-off is concentration. The top 10 holdings make up nearly 47% of QQQ's weight. Technology and related sectors dominate the fund. That means this ETF moves fast in both directions. In 2022, QQQ fell 32.5% peak to trough. VOO fell 18.2%. That's a real difference in pain, and it matters psychologically. The question is whether you can sit through those drawdowns without selling, because the data on what happens to investors who do hold through is pretty compelling. There's also roughly 80% overlap between QQQ's holdings and VOO's. That's worth understanding. You're not doubling your diversification by holding both. You're intentionally tilting further toward large-cap technology and growth. That's the point of the combination, and it's a deliberate choice, not an accident. Here's where most people quietly sabotage themselves, and it's subtle. They start with a clean 2-fund setup. It works. Markets dip. Suddenly, they're reading forums at midnight, convincing themselves they need to hedge with gold, add a defensive dividend fund, and reduce tech exposure before things get worse. So they make changes. And then markets recover without them fully participating. The Dalbar research on this is consistent across decades. The investors who trade most frequently tend to underperform those who trade least. It's not that activity is bad in isolation, it's that activity is usually emotional, and emotional decisions in markets almost always cost money. The 2 ETF setup works partly because its simplicity removes the temptation to be clever. You're not watching 32 positions, you're watching 2. And when everything feels uncertain, staying the course is a lot easier when your entire portfolio fits on a single screen. In practice, here's how you might structure this. A 50-50 split, half into your S&P 500 ETF, half into your large cap growth ETF, is a reasonable starting point for someone with a long time horizon and comfort with volatility. If you want slightly less volatility and more ballast during downturns, weighting 60% towards the S&P 500 and 40% towards the growth fund makes sense. Now, a realistic long-term projection. Using conservative to moderate blended returns assumptions of 12 to 14% per year, deliberately below the exceptional 10-year trailing figures because long-term averages tend to be lower, here's what $500 per month looks like over 30 years. At 12% blended, approximately $1.7 million. At 14% blended, approximately $2.75 million. The difference between those two endpoints comes down almost entirely to which funds you hold and how consistently you contribute. Past decade returns of 15 to 22% per component are real, but using them for 30-year projections would be overconfident. These figures are more grounded and still remarkable. Here's what you actually do with this. Step 1. Open or use an existing brokerage account. For long-term investing, an IRA or Roth IRA is worth considering first if you haven't already maxed those out. Step 2. Choose your S&P 500 ETF. VOO, IVV, and BKLC with a 0% expense ratio are all excellent. Don't spend weeks comparing them. The differences in long-term outcome are marginal compared to the decision to start. Step 3. Choose your growth ETF. QQQ or QQQM for the larger, more liquid NASDAQ 100 fund, SCHG if you want slightly broader exposure and a 0.04% expense ratio, VUG if you're already in the Vanguard ecosystem. Any of the four works. Step 4. Set your allocation. 50-50 is clean. 60-40 towards the S&P 500 is more conservative. Pick whichever you won't abandon at 11 p.m. during a sharp market decline. Step 5. Automate monthly contributions. Then resist the urge to tinker. The goal isn't the perfect ETF. The goal is to own something excellent consistently for a long time. The investors who build serious wealth over time aren't usually the ones who found some edge or discovered a secret. They're the ones who picked something logical, understood why it worked, and didn't let short-term noise convince them to walk away from it. The 2 ETF setup works partly because its simplicity removes the temptation to be clever. You're not watching 32 positions, you're watching 2. And when everything feels uncertain, staying the course is a lot easier when your entire portfolio fits on a single screen. If you found this useful, I genuinely appreciate a comment, whether you're already using one of these funds or you're just getting started and want to share where you're at. I read them all, and they help shape what I cover next. See you in the next one.